Please note the following safety rules. Should there be any reason for you to evacuate the chamber, use either of the two exit doors. Those who use the door located next to the public gallery are advised to proceed through the lobby to the front doors, down the main staircase to the muster point at James Park. Those who use the door located to the left of the presiding officer are advised to proceed to the gate leading to Backlet Street Extension and to the muster point at the Old Market Car Park. At the muster points, further instructions will be given by fire wardens or other authorized officials. Thank you for your attention. Please note the following safety rules. Should there be any reason for you to evacuate the chamber, use either of the two exit doors. Those who use the extension and to the muster point at the
Oath of allegiance of a new member. Announcements by presiding officer. Assembly bills sent back from cabinet. Petitions. Papers. Presentation of reports from Dispute Resolution Commission, select committees, code of conduct. Questions to secretaries. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by secretaries or assistant secretaries. Personal explanations. Introductions of bills. Motions relating to the business or sitting of the Assembly and moved by a secretary or assistant secretary. Public business. Executive Council business. Motion. At the meeting on Monday, the question proposed was, be it further resolved that the House approve the draft estimates of the revenue and expenditure respecting all functions of the Tobago House of Assembly for the financial year October 1, 2019 to September 30, 2020, copies of which were laid on the table at an earlier stage of the proceedings. We now resume the debate with the budget response from the Minority Leader.
Good morning, Madam Presiding Officer, Honorable Chief Secretary, good morning, my colleagues, assemblymen, councillors. We have administrators here with us and other persons who would represent the THA administrative arm, persons in the public gallery, media, local, international, World Wide Web. I do thank you all for gracing us this morning and paying attention to what's happening and what is taking place in our little lovely island of Tobago. Allow me to summarize my thoughts with one straight statement insofar as the budget 2020 is concerned. I would say this budget is unworthy of the people of Tobago. It's not worthy at all. And I will point out in my presentation this morning a number of areas that we can work on to improve the economy, we can get our figures straight and put Tobago on the right path toward developed nation status. I was appalled when I heard my colleague, Secretary for Finance, stood and he continued his wildness as if he was pulling figures out of the sky. My first year here as Assemblyman, he came with a figure, $5.2 billion. We said, lower your gaze. It was too high. He came back with half of that from the central government, Trinidad. Last year, he came with a budget, $4.58 billion. We said, lower your gaze again. He came back with less than half of that. Permit me to say that those two budgets where he placed at $5.2 billion and $4.58 billion, what he got was something like 4.0%, not even the minimum standard that we should get. When he came back this year, I have to denounce his behavior as wildness. Madam Presiding Officer, that is wildness. There's a consistent trend by my friend that he has taken up. When I look back at his previous budget speeches, from since 2015 to 2016, he has the habit of putting these big figures, 5.6 billion. I'm wondering, why is he doing that, Madam Presiding Officer? This year was no different. I sat and I heard him put out a budget of $4.72 billion. And one will say, all right. And he laid out plans with a level of accuracy and precision as if he was serious about that $4.72 billion request. He put out figures, he laid out strategies, he laid out plans. I shook my head. Because historically, again, the evidence is there to show on the books that central government would give Tobago between $2.2 to $2.5 billion. And of that, we know that about $2 billion, based on the last two previous allocations from Trinidad to Tobago, it's about $2 billion, and development budget would be anywhere around 300 million, as the case may be. So we are anticipating that with his wild request, Trinidad may pity him, may pity this PNM-led THA, and they may give them $2.5 billion. But is that what we have budgeted for? The answer is no. Therefore, to request $4.72 billion is therefore nothing short of an act that can be considered dangerous, shameless, and dehumanizing begging Trinidad for more money when they know they will not get it. It reminds me of a man I once saw begging on the highway, but he was begging differently. He didn't have a hat, he didn't have an outstretched arm, and he wasn't looking for dollars, nor was he looking for TT. He had one of those Visa card machines, and he's asking you to give him something in US. You know how the story goes. Everybody laugh at it. Is he okay? He's asking to swipe your card. He's saying, give me something, I swipe your card. And you have no small change, and I swipe your card, give me something in US. The truth be told is, what he got is what persons expected to give, coins, nothing else. If you are going to build a budget on begging, then you have to beg with a certain level of expectation. lower your gaze. Again, I'm going to say it to my colleague on that side. Lower your gaze. Ensure that when you are begging, your beg is based on historical data. Don't go with any Visa card machine asking for something you can't get. Don't do that. You are insulting Tobago and you are strengthening the hand of Trinidad to come against Tobago in a bold-faced way that resulted in Sanders being history and will soon result in the airport development project being history. Because the way you all are going about this thing is without rhyme or reason, without any method, just going about and beg because you all can beg. Madam Presiding Officer, the Secretary of Finance knows from his own data that this scale of development spending spent in the PNM way always yields development failure. Always. Always. Song development, I want to give him a little lesson, Madam Presiding Officer. I would like my friend to write this down. He has been a finance minister for almost 8 years. Finance secretary, I would say, for almost 8 years. But take this note down. Take this one line down. Song development spending restructures the economy, creates good jobs, raises productivity, and increases economic growth. That's sound development spending. Not building walls as if it's Jerusalem. No. Sound development spending. I'll repeat it for you again. Because this is the bedrock on which money must be spent to develop a nation. And the indicators of that it is good would be these. It restructures the economy. Not planning to restructure. We have been tinkering that for years, planning to restructure. All different kind of growth pools. You're doing this, CDP, PDP, all kind of thing you're all doing. With an intent to restructure the economy of Tobago. But is it restructured? No, it is not restructured. Sound development spending restructures the economy, creates good jobs, not make work. Not virtual employment, a set of persons on contract. Sound jobs that are sustainable. That's what good development spending is. And so, when the PDP get into office, our budgets will always be prefaced with the amount of jobs we intend to create per year. And those will be sustainable jobs. We will not idly engage in wishful thinking and say the economy tight, things hard. No. Every year, we intend to create sustainable jobs in this economy of Tobago. Because we are realists. It creates good jobs, raises productivity. Productivity wouldn't be a problem. That will not be a problem. And I will speak about that later on. I'll give you a few tips on that side. Productivity is definitely a challenge for my colleagues on that side. Lazy. They just copy and paste a speech from last year. Laziness. And it increases economic growth. The Secretary's accounting, rather than growing, last year Tobago's economy has been declining under his leadership. Let me quote from last year's budget statement. The survey of business establishments suggests that Tobago GDP at constant prices fell from $1.85 billion in 2016 to $1.82 billion in 2017, a marginal decline of 1.6%. Let me also quote from this year's budget statement. The most recent survey of business establishment conducted by the Division of Finance, his division, and the economy for Tobago indicate that Tobago's GDP at constant prices fell again, this time from $1.7 billion in 2017 to $1.74 billion in 2018. Those are his words. One thing we agree on is that the economy did fall. The GDP at constant prices did fall consecutively. But I will now produce the real figures by which our GDP fell. Now let me put those statements together and say something to you. Between 2016 and 2017, the Tobago economy declined by a whopping 5.4%. Get your data straight. The Tobago economy declined by a whopping 5.4%. That is between the year 2016 to 2017. Not a marginal 1.6%, as the secretary would have us believe last year. Secondly, between 2016 and 2018, Tobago economy declined by 6%. This is not the marginal decline. It's not the marginal decline. It's not the marginal decline, my friend. 6% is not a marginal decline. You will always...
He's misquoting me, and if you give the sources. Thanks. Sorry, Madam Presiding Officer, the minority leader is misquoting me. I never said that the economy of Tobago contracted by over 1%. Year on year was 0.3%, a marginal decline. And additionally, if he could provide the sources of his data to edify us all in this house, we will be grateful, please, because he's peddling misinformation.
You have just given evidence of your lack of reading. It's all in the vital statistics, CSO. It's in your statement, the statement for 20. And I'm not engaging this morning. Allow me, please. You'll have your time to wrap up. You can't have your cake and eat it. Don't be greedy, please. Don't be greedy, please. You bore me to death on Monday with a long speech. Now allow me to educate you, please. Please. Take your pen out and write. I'll repeat. In fact, I'll go on. I will not repeat. Change my mind. Learn on the fly. Learn on the go. Between 2016,
I am going to request your indulgence because on Monday, you were given the opportunity to speak without interruption. Until close to the end, I had to correct the minority leader. I'm asking you, please, to give him the same respect that you would have gotten during your presentation. This is his response. After his response, you will have the opportunity to say more.
thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I always feel good when I'm protected by you in this house. Between the years 2016 to 2018, Madam Presiding Officer, several credible economists within Tobago and from Tobago agree with me on these figures, several of them. I can call a name and I can produce the data on that. They agree that Tobago economy fell by 6%, 2016 to 2018. Not a simple decline of 1.6%, not that at all. Further, the CSO estimates of output above $2 billion, we're talking about GDP, output of about $2 billion in 2011. This data also means that the Tobago economy has been in overall decline for the last 8 years, not just the last 3 years. I say to this house and to the people of Tobago, CSO data for GDP was about $2 billion. That's the output in 2011. Now we have our secretary coming to us and giving us figures that simply suggest to us the economy is now hovering, now somewhere along 1 point something. Anything less than 2 is a decline. It has constantly been in decline for the last 8 years, constantly. And that's from CSO figures again. Challenge CSO. This demonstrates weakness and failed leadership by the People's National Movement, their inability to govern. To get $4.72 billion, as he's requesting, I'll tell you how to get it now. You want to know how? I'll tell you how. The THA will either need to change the constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, or they need to amend the THA Act number 40 of 1996 if they want $4.72 billion. Either change would require strong political leadership, and the PNM administration is void of that at this point in time. Void. Fellow Tobagonians, Madam Presiding Officer, I wish to see that last year's budget statement on page 3, I'm going to quote. They want quote? Let me give him quote. Last year's budget statement on page 3, Tobagonians were assured that constitution reform to be delivered, that will deliver self-government, appears, and I quote, appears to be much closer. Page 3, you can find that. Furthermore, the government promised to place the Tobago Constitution Reform Bill in the Parliament on May 20th. These are facts. Undisputed facts. And I'll plead for protection again because they can't take the truth on that side. On that side, just choke them, just unnerve them. That's the truth. When I used to go truth, they said the truth is sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing the soul. And I know some of you are church-going people on that side across there. But on Monday, 24th of June, the people of Tobago were drooling. They were listening intently, taking notes, hoping to hear something about this constitutional reform bill that will guarantee us self-determination, self-government, as the case may be. What they heard from the Secretary of Finance was a sick joke. As if they on that side had absconded their responsibility to pursue this thing with a certain level of intense commitment. Some sick joke that they want us to go down Trinidad and support them. How could that be done? That cannot be done. The document left the Tobago House of Assembly, based on my recollection, as a document that had the approval of the House of Assembly. As the document went down, now you come and tell us to support you. What is that? Something is wrong between what they say and what they do on that side. At the back of this year's budget statement, as if he had no shame, as if they had no shame on that side, Madam Presiding Officer. I want fellow Tobagonians to hear me carefully. On the back of this year's budget statement, if you look at page 42, you will see the only hope he handed out to Tobagonians was, please remain hopeful. Remain hopeful. I recall one of their colleagues saying in a different space and time that we're in charge now. But all of a sudden, it seems like you are not in charge. At least if you can't change the constitution to get your $4.72 billion, change it to Tobago House of Assembly Act. Put something inside. You're all in charge in the House. Simple majority. Change the act. You all can do that. You all can do that. You boast about the relationship you all have with Trinidad, And I wonder if it's a good relationship. Because at last year's budget, my mind goes back, when you ask for $4.5 billion and I get 2.2, you pull your jacket tight, and when they ask you how you feel about that, you said I feel very good about that. The minister managed well. Same thing we're saying to you. Cut your cloth to suit your length. And your prime minister told you that too, you know. Your finance minister told you that, your boss told you that. Cut your cloth to suit your length. But no. You're going down to now with a big wish list. 4.5 billion. You get 2.2, you come back up happy. So you're glad with that. It will work. We have requested from you back then that you redo a budget to show the people of Tobago how you intend to use that 2.2 billion to boost the economy, to diversify the economy, to create real jobs, and to have us in a position where we are able to collect more revenue than was in the previous year. You have not done that as yet. We understand the strength of your intellect on that side. You can only show Mobilang and backchat on this side. That's the strength of your arguments on that side. Nothing to do with developing Tobago at all. But I'll give you a few pointers. If you listen to them today, we will be in a good place. And we are doing this with brotherly love because you all are my colleagues on that side. No hate, no rancor, no rancor. It's all our thing. This is Tobago thing. We have to fix it, Madam Presiding Officer. Of the 4.72 billion, the THA is projected to collect 212.9 million in taxes and non-taxes as revenues. Every year, about the same level of collections are made. Last year was about $207 million. I want to make two observations. And I wish my fellow Tobagonians and the Secretary for Finance would take notes. Copious amount of notes. Two observations I want to make. First, if the development program was working, one of its major effects would be growth of the amount of revenues collected in Tobago. For years, 200 million. For years, around that figure. If the developmental program was working, we should be collecting 300 now. I heard a story of a famous man in Trinidad. They gave us so famous, they gave him an honorary degree. And his story is that he started off going around and selling little cloth, then little fridge. Started off. But he grew. And now, he has an empire. And even though he's dead and gone, his empire continued to thrive. He had a development program. It worries me that the banks, which are not involved in running anything but keeping the money and charging you excess profits on it, are reporting $1 billion revenue when the year comes. $1 billion revenue. And we have a THA, which is a corporate body, which has the ability to invest and do other things. And every single year, without any shame at all, they come to us and report. Expected revenue is $2 million. $200 million, around there. We need to fix that. We need to fix our development programs. Second, the 212.9 million is about 1/3 of Tobago's taxable capacity. 1/3. Tobago has a taxable capacity of $6 million. If we are to exclude all the activities relating to gas and oil, we would have a taxable capacity, of 600 million. So where is the other 380 something million? Where is that? Is there an effort being made to get that, to reach our taxable limit? It means we can do more. We can do more. But no, they depend on instructions from Trinidad. Even their speech that they read comes from Trinidad by FedEx. I spoke to FedEx this morning. Something's in package for you, Assemblyman. Secretary of Finance, something's in package for you. It's in the front. Go and sign and collect it, please. Go and sign and collect it, please. The package is there. Your response to my statement is there. The FedEx it up for you, Madam Presiding Officer. The question must be asked is, how do we continue year after year making exorbitant requests from Trinidad, 4-point-something billion, 5-point-something billion, and always collecting 2-point-something billion, and our revenues remain fixed at $200 million? We have heard of big projects in Tobago, Studley Park Quarry, where Sammy and friends running Ekapala. We have heard about the cassava company that falls under the division of finance, the cassava company. We have heard about a big boat, Capital of Paradise. All those were initiatives that they took, And of themselves, they're not bad ideas. They may be good ideas. But what are they bringing in? We have not heard any single comment on you at all from that. No audited report. I mean, I'll leave that to my colleague to get into the audited reports. I know you always squirm in your seat when you hear the truth. The truth oftentimes have you squirming and rocking on your seat, Madam Presiding Officer. Let me now get into the substance of the development agenda that the Secretary claims to be advancing. I will also take note of the fact that catch up with Trinidad was a term used by our Chief Secretary. That was our justification for the 4.72 billion budget. We have to catch up with Trinidad. Madam Presiding Officer, fellow Tobagonians, the question must be asked today. Does our beloved Chief Secretary understand what catch up means? What it means to catch up? Or maybe he was speaking about catch up rather than catch up. I'll break it down for you. We have the notes here. One of the many tragedies of this year's budget, proposed budget, and budget statement is that the government has actually provided proof to the people of Tobago that it has no understanding at all of what catch-up and development must mean for the people of Tobago. Once again, proof of failure, and once again, I will demonstrate what it means. The Secretary and the leadership of the THA has failed to provide the people of Tobago with a proper assessment of the scale of challenge we must confront. I'll help you understand it. If you're going to catch up, Martin Luther Jr., King Jr., said if a man is running faster than you and you have to catch up with him, you must run faster than the man in front of you, Yeah, that's the only way you're going to catch up with him. But we are saying we want to catch up with Trinidad. But we are begging Trinidad to give us the money so to catch up with them. We must first properly evaluate, assess the challenge that is before us, what it takes to catch up. Can I actually catch up? Do I have to run faster? Can I do it now? Or can I do it 25 years down the line? When can it be done? One has to evaluate all those things. If we use both the CSO data and the Secretary's data and assume Tobago population is about 60,000, the development challenge can be gauged as follows. Tobago output per person is between 4,200 US to 4,900 US. That's the output per person. By comparison, Trinidad's output per person exceeds 16,200. So Tobago is at least 4 times poorer than Trinidad. If you're talking about catch up or catch up, you need to know the difference, and you need to know what it actually means. Substantively, Tobago can be seen as a depressed area if one were to look at the scales of economies between the two countries. The difference is the result of very low labor productivity in Tobago, resulting from the government's failed development policies, and is damaging employment practices. The public is reminded that CSO's most recent, now these are vital statistics, these are current data, most recently published labor force statistics for Tobago indicate that 68% of paid employees in Tobago are employed by the government and its agencies. 68% of the paid employees here are employed by the government and its agencies. Congrats. Congrats, you're doing well. They're doing well, Madam Presiding Officer. My colleagues on that side, they're doing well, 68%. But there's a danger in that. This is the vital measure because the challenge of development is shaped mainly by the close relationship between low productivity and low average earnings of paid employees. At present, I've been told by CPEP workers in Tobago that they are collecting lower wages than their counterparts in Trinidad. I'm told that. And I trust my good friend, the Chief Secretary, when he stands to speak after my discourse, he will clarify that. I'm also being told that the forestry workers in Tobago, for 2 months now, they have not been paid. They have not been paid. I'm being told that countless of young people in Tobago who are waiting their gratuities money, they're not getting that. And we're talking about boosting productivity in the island. We're talking about boosting productivity on the island. There's a relationship again between productivity and wages. There is a relationship. But not only are the people of Tobago under attack, the working class, also the business class is under attack by this administration, Madam Presiding Officer. You see, they have poor policies, and the THA is in no position where it can pay the debts it owes to Tobago business people, creating much mayhem, and I will not say the rest. Businesses are folding up, if you want to know. Businesses are folding up. Thank God for the good graces of the bank. They're extending a line of credit and debt to them. But when that line reaches the end, that's it. If PDP doesn't come in here quickly and rescue the perishing, all of us will die. All of us will go down with the boat. I will want to lay a plan out, Madam Presiding Officer. A plan of 25 years of how we could get the economy up and going. It's a PDP plan, but you can take it. You can take the cover off and you can own it, if you want. That's how we are here on this side. We are magnanimous on this side. That's right. We don't hold information and watch Tobago suffer. We put it on the table and you can take it because you all have no plan whatsoever. If we are to grow from 1.74 billion, as reported by the Secretary, to about 7.3 billion over the next 25 years, right? Then we have to grow our population to a minimum of 0.04%, and we will have to grow our economy by 5.9% annually for the next 25 years. You got those figures down, I believe so. This type of calculation This type of calculation challenges the 6% decline in the economy for the 3 years, because we have to overcome and override that. So we have to grow our economy again from 1.74 billion to about $7.3 billion. But it will take 25 years to get there, because it's not an economy, far as you are aware, it's not based on oil and gas. Trinidad pegged their budget to oil and gas. We have the Secretary of Finance and his team on that side, the PM executive, pegging their budget on the goodwill of central government. The goodwill. Like the man with the credit card machine, he bases his catchment for the day on the goodwill of people to swipe their card. My Lord. Wishful thinking. But proud beggars they are. They will not humble themselves and base it on a realistic type of budgeting. Look at your revenues, diversify the economy, and I'll get down to that in a while again. How you diversify the economy. The Secretary and the government invites Tobagonians to focus on 5 broad areas: tourism, the use of land, transportation, air bridge, sea bridge, energy efficiency, human capital development. We have heard the same things from this government for many years. Unfortunately, all of us, the record of performance clearly indicates that this program will only deliver more years of disastrous decline and damage to the economy of Tobago. By his own estimates, his program can be expected to deliver decline of 3% per year for the foreseeable future under your watch, under PNM administration watch across there. We expect to have a constant decline. Put differently, by the time this government is finished with Tobago, there will be nothing left to develop. And we have gotten consent from them. They say it's correct. There's nothing left to develop. Nothing left to develop. They have confessed this morning. I'm happy to see confession is good for the heart. Confession is good for the heart. Accordingly, I wish to advise the people of Tobago that first, if we are going to meet the development challenge that confront us in Tobago today, we must undertake a new and properly designed program of investment that could provide better, more secure, more productivity jobs than those emphasized by this government since 2000. The government policies have and will create a sinkhole of poor quality and low-paid jobs and represent a development trap for Tobagonians. Second, the development program for Tobago must represent a clear solution to the development problems of Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago must use its advantage to facilitate joint national investment in industries that increase the national capacity to compete regionally, globally, and therefore diversify and grow the national capacity to export. You hear me? I want to read it again. We must diversify and grow our national capacity to export while restraining the national dependence on importation of goods. So while we're selling out, we must not lower the amount of goods we import, so to speak. But that is another exercise for another time and place, and we will reveal to you all how those investments can be done. Sufficient information is given to you at that point in time on that. At this time, in this house, it suffices to make, I want to make 2 observations. First, no serious allocation has been made for large-scale investment needed to develop the University of Tobago as Tobago's main platform for exporting tertiary education. Every year, a paltry $1 million is allocated to TI with the effect of keeping it a second-rate institution in a competitive international market for tertiary education. Indeed, the whole idea of investing to produce tertiary exports is largely missing from the government's strategy. Secondly, even though allocations for healthcare comprise the largest component of the budget, all the money is intended to run the health institutions as public utilities servicing local needs. It is not adequate for Tobago if we are to make serious strides in developing our economy. If we are to look at the Minister of Finance, last year, he began promoting healthcare exports, and he put aside large amounts of money to be invested in the Cover Children's Hospital for that purpose. There is something called health tourism, you know. Something called health tourism. There's something called education tourism. Tourism isn't just built on the platform of white sand and coconut trees and a man playing steel band. It's more than that. Tourists come to a place for different reasons. Some because of history, the artifacts. They come because of education. In Australia alone, I could say to you, they boast of having 1 million tourists from China alone per year. Half of that tourist population goes to Australia because of education. Yeah? Because the children are there, they go there. We heard our Chief Secretary, Madam Presiding Officer, talking about developing our idea of the University of Tobago. And we say, yes, run with it. Run with it. Yes, we had the idea across here. It was incubated across here. But if you want to finance it, go ahead. But they don't have a clue as to what they're doing. One would think here is the opportunity now that you have created a committee to look into this Tobago University. Here is a time to put some money there, get the research done, do the soil testing, allocate lands, etc. While you have the opportunity to do it. Because you're in office now, only for a few months. Again, you are there. Do it while you are there. But no. Gambashing. Talking big talk, creating committee, and not a cent in the kitty to deal with the University of Tobago. Talking about health tourism, opening all kind of breast clinic up in the east with no machine, again. Doing all kind of pap smear. Say they're doing. But again, with that big budget that allocated to healthcare, how much of that caters for a tourist who wants to come down and do a surgery and recuperate while he's here? How much? We are talking about a different type of diversification of the economy. We need to diversify your economy on many different platforms. The Secretary of Finance failed in his budget to say what they will do with the old hospital at Fort George and what they will do with the new hospital at Signal Hill. No idea as how they will use that to diversify the economy, how they will use that to bring money in. No idea at all whatsoever. They're only spending money as if we're not a style. Spending money. When you come into tourism, the THA talk very loosely about it. Very loosely. There is no clarity as to what constitutes strong tourism, none whatsoever, or how do you develop the product. I want to draw, Madam Presiding Officer, the Secretary of Finance attention to the successes of Australia, India, Britain, Spain, and United States. They utilized industrial service exports as the main platform for the tourism product development. You can't export something that is not a product. As a matter of fact, that is a growing export right now in North America. When you export services. When someone go to sing in Nottingham Hill Carnival, they're exporting their services. All right? Yeah. As a matter of fact, when you buy the boat, the old boat called Van Dam, whatever you want to call it. When they bought this old boat, the boat comes with captain and crew. They're exporting services. Yeah. Boat and crew. Even if you buy a photocopy machine these days from a next door neighbor, they sell you with an upkeep. Why is it that with our tourism product, we are not thinking about exporting services so we can actually have a greater boost in our economy here? There are some frightening statistics which I want to reveal here today. It may shock you, Madam Presiding Officer, because it did shock me. I had to brace myself when I got the statistics because I recognize the PNM Executive Administration, they are killing us softly with their song. Killing us softly. Let's take a view on what is required to develop Tobago to a point where it can compete nationally, globally, and regionally and globally. The most recent data on the labor market provided by CSO, and those are current statistics, indicate another frightening aspect to the development challenge confronting Tobagonians. Mark this down. 43% of Tobago's labor force has inadequate secondary education. 43%. We heard no plan at all from the Secretary in dealing with that. None. There is no plan at all from the Secretary in dealing with that. None of their business. 33% of Tobago's labor force has passed no secondary subjects. 33% of all labor force. How do they intend to counteract that? What money are they allocating to that? 22% have no better primary education. I know the Secretary for Education is troubled now. We have thrown some corn in his area. We have heard the song, Kup, 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 Kup. We have heard the song. Kup, Kup, Kup. Secretary of Education. I hope he addresses these issues. This is the evidence that Tobago has been trying to join the battle for development opportunity with 43% of its labor force lacking adequate levels of multiple literacy and numeracy. The type of literacy and numeracy required to process information effectively in the process of market competition. It's more than reading and writing. Understanding the world of work. Understanding things. That's important. It's very important. But no, 43%. Let me indicate that the accepted global benchmark for small countries is set by Singapore. And it has no more than 16% of its labor force lacks adequate multiple literacy and numeracy. They said that. When you come into small countries, and I'll give you a little lesson on that, you always fly over Singapore when you're going. Tobago is about 300 square kilometers. 300 square kilometers. 300. Singapore is about 700 square kilometers. That means Singapore is almost twice the size of Tobago. Almost. Right? A little more. That's twice the size. Yet, Singapore boasts of being among the top 3 in ranking where the world education is concerned. Top 3 nations in the world. Singapore. Singapore has grown a population to 5.5 million people in Singapore. Singapore has no natural resources, no river, no aqueducts, Singapore have no land to plant food. No. But Singapore has never been out of food. They're never out of water. Never out of electricity. They have no oil and gas. Singapore produce 80% of the homes in Singapore produced by the government. And there are different models of home. They go out in the middle of nowhere and they set up, just watch me learn something, in the middle of nowhere, and they build a home. They build an entire community. Entire community. They have low-end homes and high-end homes. That's Singapore for your money. They have one of the best airports in the entire world. One of the best airlines. Singapore started off with nothing. But it's about leadership. It's about leadership. Singapore set the standard for small countries. And Singapore is only a little more than twice time our size, I see. And they say when coming to literacy and numeracy, it shouldn't cross 16%. They set that target. Ours, 43%. Damaging the nation. Damaging the nation. And they wouldn't talk about how they intend to remedy that. No, not all business at all. They'll have no interest in remedying that. Singapore standards are 38% of the labor force have at least a first degree, as opposed to Tobago, only 17% of our labor force has a degree. Only 17%. And they want to manufacture figures on the spot. But give them a chance. And they will create something. All the package come in. Something in FedEx waiting for you. Down the road. Hot off the press. Tobago's, the amount of persons in Tobago with a first degree numbers about 17%. And that is CSO, vital statistics. So don't blame me. Ask CSO. I didn't come up with this. CSO. Singapore, 38% of the population, we're talking about 5.5 million people, have first degrees. And then 56% of that population have professional diplomas and degrees. That is persons with masters and them kind of thing and doctorates. And we're talking about 56%. That's why Singapore is called the Asian tiger. That's why Singapore has created a turnaround its economy. Here we are, blessed with natural resources, blessed with good human capital. But yet, 43% of our population, our labor force, has inadequate secondary education, and 22% has nothing better than a primary education. So when we talk about battling and becoming more competitive and catching up, it's impossible for us to do that under this regime with that type of plan because our hands are tied behind your back. And if you're going to fight fairly and equally, you need to unloose your hands. I need to fight with both fists. We need to unleash the appropriate type of financing that is required to ensure that our population has the right type of literacy and numeracy so that they can compete with anyone else in the open world. We have produced a lot of brilliant people here, but those that we have produced are not enough to have Tobago qualify as a first world nation that is ready to do trade and exports and services, etc., regionally and globally. Yes, many have left because there's nothing to come back to. Just the other day, someone with a master's, they called me. They said, what's now willing to work as a taxi driver? You have anything? I spoke to a colleague of mine. I said, how is your daughter going? He said, boy, she come back. She have a degree. And I went to what the degree is, but some engineering degree she has. And she's working in a store. Yeah, underemployment. We open the gate, we say, go and educate yourself. People rush out to educate themselves. And when they come back in, nothing. Nothing. How could that be? How are you planning to put us on a competitive edge? To add insult to injury, as I look at the budget, what I'm seeing here is about 2 million allocated to address those literacy challenges. 2 million. I want to place on the record here today, right, that I have had several discussions with my constituency throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and plenty subject matter experts. And they have told me, if we have to combat the problem of literacy, we must spend at least 50 million per year for the next 7 years, continuously for the next 7 years, to bring that under control and to reach the standards set by Singapore, which is the model for small countries. But instead of spending 50 million, 2 million towards that, 2 million towards that, that's the kind of government we have here. And then the sing calypso, we love you so we care for you. If we are going to develop the economy of Tobago, we must involve our villages, our communities. We have to do that. We have no choice. For far too long, our communities have been left out of development. And I want to place on the record here. I heard of a development taking place in Roxborough, and I must say thanks to the People's National Movement, in that you all have not given me money to run my constituency, but you have given me some development. I'm very proud. What I can boast about, since I'm there, my people have been blessed with a brand new police station. The Prime Minister says it's like Fort Knox. He says so strong, it's like Fort Knox. Well, I say I'm happy for that. We have also been blessed with a brand new administrative complex. They have not given me money, but they're developing my tongue, and I'm happy for that. A brand new fire station is about to be built. I am happy for that. The complex, Sid Grey complex, is being rebuilt, and I hope that when it's complete, the Secretary of Sports would actually open it as Sid Grey complex. I'll take that too. I'll take that too. I'm hoping they will do that. But I must say thanks. Thanks for acknowledging the fact that I am present in the constituency of Belgarden East, Roxborough, Delaford, and you are doing things to keep me looking good. No development. I mean, Sandy was there. He worked till he catch a stroke. I mean, we have Gary Melville was there. Yeah, Gary Melville was there. Oh gosh, the man only keep telling people next week Tuesday, next week Tuesday. No, I am there. And I could tell you, in my absence, development is taking place in Roxborough unprecedented, even without my involvement. And I say that deliberately because as I traverse the Roxborough estate, I recognize something is taking place. A hospital. And I was asking my office staff at my constituency office in Roxborough, I said, did you not receive an invitation or any consultation at all? None. I took it upon myself. I said, call the Secretary for Health and find out if I miss the consultation, because obviously if something is happening in my district, I should be consulted. I was told that there's no invitation, no consultation. I'm appalled by how they go about developing things, you know. But I comfort myself with these words. The more they develop Roxborough, the less I have to develop Roxborough when I take over in a few short months. It's a less for me. Less for me. I'll tell you now, the people in Roxborough say they can't get you out, Watson Duke. We love you too bad. They will have to dig out from the Baba Green. Even the Baba Green is black. PDP colors. Even the Baba Green is black. Madam Presiding Officer, we have to involve the villages in so far as development is concerned. I'm glad for Roxborough, but I'm very sorry for other areas in Tobago because I'm a magnanimous leader. As I traverse the area, I hear people crying out from Shalloville to Crown Point, lack of development. Up to yesterday, a young man came into the minority leader's office and he complained of a road that was fixed in Zion Hill. And when it rains, the road becomes a drain and it washes its place every time. In Goodwood, there's a place where rubbish keeps piling up over and over again. That's not a sign of development. Simple things like that needs to be corrected. Needs to be corrected. Each and every village in Tobago, and there are 42 villages in Tobago, 42 villages, can become a place where persons are empowered. It can become a place where we facilitate partnership to develop a strong and better and brighter Tobago. But that would require for us to launch, and I want you to take this name, use this one here. Madam Presiding Officer, I want them to use this one here on that side. I'm giving them some information here. We must launch the Village Empowerment and Development Program. And I drop it like it's hot. We must launch the Village Development, the Village Empowerment and Development Program. The words are self-explanatory. Empower the people in the villages. Allow them to participate in development. All of Tobago knows that from the time we get into office, which is the Progressive Democratic Patriots, as early as next year, when we get into office, we will be giving each of those 42 villages $10 million. That's a vote. That's for development. $10 million. Coal currency, Tobago currency. That money will be in a vote, and they will access that to carry out certain development. Right now, money have been spent, and all we're seeing is road paving. Road paving. But walls building. But no development that consistent with the communities. No one talks to them anymore. Just wake up one morning and see heavy babble. Sammy and friends paving the road. How they see? Or Ram and friends paving the road. All they sing every morning. Ram and friends or Sammy and friends. No involvement. They defy the village councils. They defy even the assemblymen who are not of their own rank or their own color. So we must launch the Village Empowerment and Development Program. And there are three core elements of that. I wish my good friend, the Secretary of Finance, was taking notes, because he would have this down back by the time I finish with this. Three components. One, a comprehensive village resource mapping must be done of the human and physical resources. You must do that. Know the people in the village. Know about bush medicine that goes for coal. Know who know about building dude oven. Know every single thing. Know about the skills. Know about which part they could find some things in the bush up there that nobody know. I've heard hunters say somewhere in the bush in Tobago, the number of pottery that date back to the 18-something. Potteries that they find out there. I haven't heard one man found some gold out there too. Dead man treasure. So you must take a comprehensive mapping of your village resources. That's number one, Madam Presiding Officer. Number two, you must have what is called preparation of village tourism diversification and development plans. How each and every village in Tobago will prepare a plan to diversify tourism that falls within it. All right? And its own development plans. Let's see about that. They must have a committee dealing with that. And the third one is the use of village-based participatory planning and budgeting. Involve them in planning the budget. Don't just shove things down on the throat. As they went into several villages and do. They're going into East, and the Lieutenant Shalaville first. Shalaville opposed them. One man had them in court on that matter when they put down this big thing right on the man land, this one, upset the place. Heavy concrete. Did the same thing in Castara. No, not talking to anybody at all. The public is involved. And now they're going down to the west, where they feel they're very comfortable down there. They feel nobody can move them from the west. They're going down there, and they're trying to tell these people to come out of their homes because they want to extend some runway for some airport and build some place where persons could assemble, etc. I want to tell them today, the West is moving away from P&M, and they're coming to PDP. And we would be right there, because we believe in participatory democracy. Allow people to say something in their own development. Don't just push things down the throat. It's wrong. And we can see it all around, Even in the Sanders project, didn't involve anybody. I heard one man making a comment on the TV, Madam Presiding Officer, and he's saying to a group of people, they're all dressed in red. I couldn't tell why they're dressed in red. If Sanders good for Jamaica, if it's good for Dominic, if it's good for St. Lucia, if it's good for Barbados, if it's good for so-and-so, then it's good for you. And the people in red is like they got hot. He said, yes, it's good for us. That was a consultation right there. That was a consultation. That's how some people consult in this country. Nobody's having a proper meeting again where everyone is invited. Even the taxi driver, the housewife, the carpenter, or even the person who is physically challenged. They must be allowed to come and say something. So that Sanders project is on a hold because no one was involved in that. Then they now come up with something recently. We're talking about draft medium-term policy and planning framework. They don't even know what it means, but they're talking it. Madam Presiding Officer, when you look at the budget that was allocated for community development in 2018, some $49.3 million and some $60 million in 2019, you have to take a good look at it and ask yourself a few questions. Ask yourself, if $40 million of that money was taken and spent on recurrent expenditure, staff, things like that, machine, plant, equipment, what would be left to support the villages? We have done the math. $400,000 for every village. What can that do? What can that do? The last time I checked, and I will not say that, that can do nothing. That's all I will say on that matter. Tobago villages are never given the opportunity to examine the THE's capital budgets for fairness and development effectiveness in advance of its presentation to the House. They always come inside here and they say to the people of Tobago, we have had consultations with the people. But who? Who they consulted with? Red Jersey people. That's who they consult with. I've been looking out for the consultation in my area, Roxborough, for a very long time. I even called. None. When I spoke to Assemblyman Farley, I said, was there any consultation in your area regarding the budget? He said, none. When I spoke to Dr. Faith B. Israel, councillor, she said, hey, no consultation. I either. I'm concerned. What does consultation mean to them? But another time, another place, I will get into that. In particular, it should be mandated that Tobago's executive should publish in a timely manner for public examination its criteria for 1, distribution of development investment among the villages, and 2, increase the reduction in the size of development investment allocated to the villages. It should also be mandated that the criteria for distribution of capital investment in Tobago be designed to further the fair distribution of the burdens and benefits of investment consistent with the village development needs and with due regard to the social and economic impacts of such development on the citizen or resident in the villages. It should be further mandated that in preparation for a statement of budget priorities, the THA, after adequate public notice, and not later than 1 month before its budget presentation to the House, hold at least one public, I say the word public, not red juicy business this, public hearing at which residents of Tobago and other interested individuals may express their opinions as to the capital development needs of the island and its villagers. Let me end by observing that we, on this side, fellow Tobagonians, Madam Presiding Officer, we on this side of the Progressive Democratic Patriots household, we on this side view with regret and dismay the demonstrated failure of the PNM in the THE and the central government to bring closure to the matter of effective self-determination for the people of Tobago. We similarly view with regret and dismay the incapacity, lack of guts, they have plenty belly but they lack guts, to end the annual begging parade to Port of Spain. So far, all we have gotten are empty promises and reports. As a people, we demand immediate action on this matter. It is our intention to mobilize the people of Tobago around a clear proposal to achieve self-determination and to bring an end to this annual dehumanizing practice and allowed budgeting for Tobago with skill, pride, and dignity. I have a few more minutes, I could wind it up. But with greatest of respect, Madam Presiding Officer, for you and the people of Tobago, I wish to say that I want the PNM, the executive, to continue how they are going, because you are almost out of the door. We have plans for Tobago, and our plans involves transparency, it involves participatory democracy, it involves boosting this economy so that after the first year, we guarantee you, after the first year of being in office, the next year, our revenue will not be $200 million. It will move towards the $300 million mark. We have to do something with the little that is given to us. We cannot base a budget on Trinidad's willingness to grant us some paltry allowance. We have to take our own hands and dig and carve our future, because the youths who are coming up today, Generation X and the millennials, will not sit down and allow Tobago to go bankrupt when they have enough brains to transform this island. I thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Chief Secretary and Secretary for Education, Innovation and Energy.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. But let me begin on a positive note. And let me therefore express my sincerest congratulations to the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Secretary for Finance and the Economy for a well-presented, articulated, and lucid presentation of the 2019-2020 budget. Having said that, Madam Presiding Officer, it is indeed a travesty, a tragedy almost, to have sat and listened to a hodgepodge of information, contradictory, frivolous, vexatious, vacuous. In fact, Madam Presiding Officer, it has left me bewildered, utterly bewildered, and profoundly bemused. And I would have thought that given his third year, the Deputy Chief Secretary spoke for, I think, 2 hours and 10 minutes, that he would have been able to at least present a presentation or a statement in response that equals the time. But we have to thank God for small mercies. We have been spared the ignominy. Talk is cheap. And indeed, in respect of those on the minority side, and indeed from the minority leader, it is even cheaper. Because when in opposition, you can talk glibly about what should be done and what can be done. But the reality is that government is not an easy matter. It is far more complex. But I do understand, and I wouldn't ask for protection. But I do understand. Yes, you quoted some figures about 43% of the labor force in Tobago has less than satisfactory secondary education. I can see why. I can see why. Madam Presiding Officer, his presentation in the main was riddled with contradictions, as I said, characterized by a paucity of critical thought and downright prevarications, and seasoned and flavored with half-truths, hyperboles, and innuendos. Imagine he's attempting to compare Tobago, 116 square miles in area, with a population of about 60,000, with Singapore and India. Many millions of people, especially India. You should compare like with like. Why not use Caribbean countries? You fail to do that. And the truth be told, it is difficult to delink economic development from political development. And it may interest you to know that the glibness with which you spoke a while ago, you would not have been able to do that in Singapore. In his rebuttal, he clearly missed the mark. And I'm reminded, you know, of the attempt in 9/11, when one of the aircrafts commandeered by the terrorists failed to meet its mark. It was heading for Washington, D.C., but came down in Philadelphia. We saw that this morning. And what is equally pathetic is that he sought to dramatize his presentation by reference to a beggar, and a beggar using technology. You know? And I was wondering whether he was speaking about someone he knows very well. Someone he knows very well. The minority leader, Madam Presiding Officer, has not distinguished himself in either of his occupations. As a matter of fact, any perusal of the financial records of the PSA would indicate mismanagement at best. And yet he's thinking about wanting to be Chief Secretary and Prime Minister. Could one imagine that? But of course, in this country, one is free to dream. One is free to dream. If anything shows a palpable lack of understanding and readiness, is the issue of begging, as though Tobagonians are begging. And you know, Madam Presiding Officer, I worked with the newspapers because Tuesday, June 25th, we saw Tobago stop begging Duke Slam's 4.7 THA budget. A palpable lack of understanding. The simple fact of the matter, Madam Presiding Officer, as any good student knows, Trinidad and Tobago being a unitary state and a country, the resources of Trinidad are the resources of Trinidad and Tobago. And the resources of Tobago are the resources of Trinidad and Tobago. Any standard 5 child knows that. And I'm sure his colleagues on the minority bench would advise him accordingly. Indeed, in looking at their faces, in a capture on this newspaper that I just referred to, one could have seen the embarrassment on their faces. And if he's talking about Tobago begging, I ask myself, is he echoing the views or sentiments of some of his friends in Trinidad? That may be instructive, very instructive indeed. Madam Presiding Officer, assuming Tobago put gods out of his thoughts, their thoughts, and place the minority leader in charge of Tobago, I wonder where would he get his revenue from? Since, yeah. My colleagues on this side would in fact speak a lot about revenue generating measures. As a matter of fact, he had the gall to make reference to Studley Park. But I would leave that to the Secretary of Infrastructure to advise him, this Honorable House, and by extension the people of Tobago, about the quantum of revenues that are currently being generated by that institution. And the truth be told, left to the minority leader, we would still be under the old model because he sought to create confusion involving a close relative of his, indicating to the people, the workers, that we had all intentions of sending them home, which was so untrue. We had stated all along that what we would be doing is redeploy the workers as we were transitioning to a new model of economic development for that. But that's his style. That's his style, Madam Presiding Officer, to confuse with truths to some extent, but with an abundance of half-truths and innuendos. Madam Presiding Officer, I make another quote before I shift gears. And I quote him as he's quoted in the newspaper. They should have been more reasonable and say we want this amount, but we can expect revenue to be 5 billion. It will make sense to fool us this way. Do not characterize those on this side with what you have made a habit of doing. We don't mama guy. On this side, we produce accuracy, we produce truth. We level the people. That is how we have acquitted ourselves, and that is how we'll continue to acquit ourselves. Madam Presiding Officer, I shall now shift to give an account of our stewardship, and in particular in respect of education, innovation, and energy. Madam Presiding Officer, because it is important to know that in the context of my administration and the fact that we have been here for a little over 2 years, that the people of Tobago be reminded or be advised of what we have been able to achieve in such a short space of time and with reduced revenues. Madam Presiding Officer, you may recall that we commissioned the Scarborough RC School last year in time for the new school year. And even as we did that, we simultaneously commissioned a road that would have allowed for access to Mount Mary, thereby ensuring that as we opened the school, that we would have made it easier for traffic to flow in either direction. And we did that quite successfully. And at the same time, we ensured that the school was outfitted with the requisite furniture. And in this regard, I pay homage to the workers at URV, some of the workers who, by implication of the minority leader this morning, if you listen to him, you will think are incapable. They would have provided all the benches, repaired some, and manufactured some out. Over the period under review, and that is from June last year to June this year, we would have conducted repairs to 33 primary and 9 secondary schools and completed expansion works to 4 schools and commissioning them in time for the school year. And those 4 primary schools are Wim, Anglican Hope Anglican, Signal Hill Government, and Patience Hill Government. That is delivery, Madam Presiding Officer. Let me move quickly to what I consider as human infrastructure, the development of our human capital. Now, under school supervision and training programs, we would have engaged in a number of activities. We had workshops, for example, on supporting the principalship, school development planning, instructional effectiveness in the student-centered classroom, classroom management, and financial management for school administrators. But what we're pleased about, Madam Presiding Officer, is that in respect of classroom management in the student-centered classroom, where we targeted secondary school children, we were able to get all our secondary schools to be part of an initiative which resulted in the formation of a Tobago Association of Students' Councils. And one of the outcomes of that would have been an activity, an anti-bullying rally and conference, which took place on the 12th and 13th of February, 2019, under the banner, "Be a bucket filler and not a dipper," where we were seeking to get our young students to understand that they have a responsibility to conduct themselves in activities that are wholesome and productive. Strengthening our institutional capacity, literacy at our schools. One of the things that we did over the last period is to continue training in a new approach to the development of reading. And we call that the Johnny Phonics program. And to date, 16 out of our 40 primary schools have been trained. And what is interesting and significant is that those students that have been exposed, the parents are grateful because they have seen improvement in the performance of their children. ICT training. A third cohort of teachers at the secondary level were trained in integrated information technology as we move towards the implementation of e-testing as a major form of testing at CSEC and CAPE, preparing our students through preparing our teachers. We had some new interventions during the period. one of which was the Learning Enhancement Center. And this project, Madam Presiding Officer, is intended to provide a safe and nurturing space for suspended and at-risk students to receive assessment, curriculum strengthening exercises, and other diagnosed interventions. During the period being reviewed, we would have dealt with in excess of 100 students from January to June. And the record indicates that in all but about 8 cases, we have seen improvements in the behaviors of those children. More than that, they have been well taken care of during the day. They are provided with training in mathematics and language and so on in the morning, and in the evening they're treating with behavior situations, and of course they're exposed to agriculture and those activities. What we are saying, ladies and gentlemen, or we are saying, Madam Presiding Officer, is that we are seeking to ensure that we build the capacity of our young people. And that is why I started by talking about human infrastructure, because it is these young people who would have to build Tobago. And of course, we need to make the point that development is not primarily or only about physical structures, but development is principally about people. And if we do not develop our young people, we're in for trouble. And that is why we are spending the time that we are spending on developing our people. Madam Presiding Officer, one of the additional things that we have earmarked to do is an accelerated learning program. We did the preparatory work before, and we are ready to launch this program in July. All primary schools were invited to participate in the program by sending their standard 4 students who would have gained a particular level of grade in respect of their end-of-term tests. And these students were then examined by our curriculum department at 3 centers through standardized tests. And we have selected 26 students to begin a pilot project in this area. The thinking behind this is simple. You have students who have the capacity to be enriched, to be trained, to be developed above the norm. And we're talking here, of course, of our primary students. And we shall provide them with the opportunity so to do. And the idea being that we should be able, Madam Presiding Officer, to go toe-to-toe, head-to-head, and shoulder-to-shoulder with their compatriots in Trinidad. And we are very proud of this program. The program is expected to proceed, as I said, from July through the vacation period, and will operate at the Teachers Professional Center, an institution that we commissioned not too long ago. Madam Presiding Officer, one of the areas that we are very mindful of has to do with our curriculum development, because we understand the need to ensure that we have the right kind of curriculum, but more importantly, that our teachers are adequately trained and exposed so that the curriculum can be implemented in very effective ways. And I can say to this Honorable House, as part of our record of performance at that division, there have been a number of training programs that would have been carried out. And I would place this on the record so that people would understand the kind of work that we are doing that may not be seen. You see, I've always made the point, that hardware is non-functional without software and applications. And we are about preparing the software minority leader and the applications to ensure that the hardware that we put in place, in fact, produced the results that we anticipated. So one of the critical areas, Madam Presiding Officer, is the primary curriculum rewrite, which really represents a new approach to the teaching and learning situation in the primary school. And in June last year, approximately 90 educators were trained in the use of the new primary school curriculum. 90. The TVT program, again, last year, during the period being reviewed, 26 students of the Signal Hill Secondary School and 31 students at Roxborough Secondary were exposed to these programs and assessment. Geographical Information Systems training for teachers, where we sought to equip teachers with the requisite skills to guide students in GIS in undertaking map work at secondary schools. And 11 such teachers were trained in that regard. Spanish workshops, July, 10 primary schools were exposed to the implementation of Spanish at the primary level. And may I advise this House, Madam Presiding Officer, that all graduates of UTT who do the primary specialization are trained in Spanish so that they can at least do some basic Spanish at the primary school. AutoCAD training was done. 12 teachers from the secondary schools would have been involved in training and the delivery of computer-aided design programs. All of these we are doing, and that's why I'm pointing them out, because ordinarily, one may not be aware. Development of a Tobago district assessment protocol and item writing, thereby ensuring that as we test our students, we do not only test them at the level of knowledge, but knowledge and application particularly, so that we lift the capacity, the ability of our students to think, to reason, to analyze, to apply, to synthesize, and express themselves as they move through the school system. We collaborated with Shell as well and completed the STEM technical training project, and that was in November last year. And that system, as you know, was aimed to provide support and encouragements to students to pursue science and STEM-related subjects and careers at all levels, technical, vocational, and theory. As part of that project in Tobago, 21 participating students coming from our secondary schools and were able to successfully graduate out of that program. And this first cohort will be advanced to the second level, and a second cohort of students will be engaged for an additional installment of the program, preparing our people, our young people, to take up their beds and walk at the appropriate time. Because you see, we can talk glibly about when we get into office, we'll create sustainable jobs, as though you can just wave a magic wand and create sustainable jobs, you know? May I? And therein lies the challenge, Madam Presiding Officer. If one can say you can wave a magic wand and create sustainable jobs, well, it underscores the quality of the mind that is behind such a statement. Madam Presiding Officer, perhaps at this point I must say this, because no one on this side has ever said that the structural nature of the economy of Tobago is what it should be. In fact, in coming into office, we made the point very forcefully that with a percentage of the labor force of upwards of close to 80%, and I'm saying 80% because I'm taking in not only those that are directly employed by the THA, but those who are employed in entities that provide service primarily to the THA, 8 out of 10, that is unsustainable. No island, no country can be developed adequately on that basis. Meaning, of course, that you have a 20% that is involved in your private sector. And in our case, in our private sector, if we are to be honest, the majority of persons in our private sector are merchants. They buy, they mark up, and they sell. And therefore, we recognize that you must move to the point where you develop a robust private sector, but one that is engaged in production and manufacturing. And we have, in fact, begun to do just that. And the Secretary for Community Development, Enterprise, and Labor, and of course the Secretary for Finance and the Economy, when he winds up the budget, will deal with some specific initiatives and the results of those initiatives. As a matter of fact, recently I was advised that the percentage in respect of those who are employed directly by the THA as a percentage of the overall has begun to go down. But when you recognize as well that as far as the THA is concerned, we have sent nobody home, it means that the differential is coming from the productive sector, the private sector, and that is significant. In the budget presentation, the point was made that whereas in 2016, employment or unemployment was at 4%, at the end of 2017, it was 2%. And anybody who would have done Economics 101 would know that economists consider 4% unemployment as full employment. And therefore, if you're talking 2% unemployment, you're talking more than full employment. That is where Tobago stands. And even if he talks glibly about certain statistics that he threw around, one just has to look around Tobago, ladies and gentlemen, Madam Presiding Officer, and one can see. Look at the kinds of structures that our Tobagonians are putting up. Look at the kinds of vehicles that we drive, including the minority leader. And tell me, if that is not concrete evidence of the quality and the standard of living of the people of Tobago, then what is? And interestingly, on Monday, on one of our popular radio stations, I-95.5, a poll was done. Unscientific, we all agree, but at least sometimes it does provide you with an accurate pulse of the nation. The question was, has there been development in Tobago under the Charles administration? And the response was 58% said yes. 42% said no. But even more significantly was the fact that the two hosts stated categorically, unambiguously, without doubt, that in their own views, because they come to Tobago from time to time, they have seen evidence of growth, and particularly in the business sector. Continuing, irrefutable evidence, irrefutable proof,
No. Your speaking time has expired.
Madam Presiding Officer, I beg that the speaking time for the honorable member be extended back to the 10 minutes. Thank you.
The question is that the speaking time for the honorable member be extended by a further 10 minutes. All in favor? Any against? Member, your speaking time has been extended by a further 10 minutes.
And Madam Presiding Officer, unfortunately, I was just waxing warm. I was just getting into my full oratorical flight. And you see, if the minority leader was indeed magnanimous, he would allow me to use the minutes that he I take this opportunity to move swiftly because I must treat with some global issues. Because the minority leader did refer to two of them, I think. One has to do with the whole question of autonomy. And Madam Presiding Officer, as everyone is aware, and even the Prime Minister would have made it pellucidly clear that he cannot give Tobago internal self-government or self-government. The minority leader and his colleagues must know that the constitutional reform bill requires special majority, 3/5, which the PNM government does not now have. He must know as well that the matter is being considered by a joint select committee of the parliament, and the committee is doing its work. Because the committee, as issues arise, the committee must do the necessary research. And in fact, the record will show that we have made several appearances before the Joint Select Committee and would have been invited as well as other parties were making their presentations. And as far as I am aware, that matter is actively being pursued and it shall be resolved in the not too distant future. But I do hope that when the time comes, the minority will put its money where its mouth is. Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to persuade those on the opposition side, some of his friends, of the need to support the legislation. Regularization
We have
of
some order, please.
regularization of the issue of land tenure in Tobago. As you know, Madam Presiding Officer, that has been a vexed issue. And the government of Trinidad and Tobago, I'm looking for my notes here. The government of Trinidad and Tobago has in fact amended legislation that was passed in 2000, a package of legislation that allows for an adjudication process that will bring the issue of land tenure in Tobago and in the country to resolution once and for all. So that I read into the records the fact that the land titling legislative package envisages a nationwide systematic adjudication process to allow for legal rights and interests in every parcel of land in the country, particularly Tobago, to be determined and to be registered in a more efficient land titles registry system. As a matter of fact, the process would involve parcels currently registered under the RPO to be transferred automatically to the new land registry. Parcels with good documentary title, typically in the form of a registered deed, will be transferred with limited investigation, and claims to parcels of land based on other documents, such as unprobated wills, etc., will be subject to more thorough investigation. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is working with the THA, and of course the commitment is that the program will be rolled out in Tobago first, and I can advise this Honorable House that preparatory works are underway at this time, and those works include but are not limited to defining the IT requirements and the requisite design model for the exercise, defining institutional and organizational measures necessary as well for its implementation, and a proposed design to bring about optimal public participation in the process, because the intent is to ensure that 100% of the land parcels within the country is in fact dealt with. And I also wish to talk a bit, time permitting, on the new airport terminal building relocation and compensation issues, and to remind this House and the people of Tobago that having completed 2 phases of consultation and sharing with residents of Tobago alike the key facets, issues, and approaches, I repeat the THA's commitment to treat fairly and to facilitate a smooth transition as possible. And in this regard, I say that as Chief Secretary, I propose to meet with the peace movement, given the fact that a number of pieces of information would have been disseminated in the near future to ensure that any legitimate concerns that are lingering can be amicably resolved. Madam President, Officer, how much time do I have left?
You have 4 minutes.
Right. Can be amicably resolved. Madam Presiding Officer, in closing, the minority leader did make reference to sandals and, of course, even to the airport. And that is why I talked about contradiction and innuendos and prevarications, because the same sandals he's talking about, he is on record as applauding when the Sandals decided that they were no longer interested. But more than that, had the unmitigated goal to say when he gets into power, he got called by the same Sandals. If Sandals ain't good under PNM, all Sandals good under any other government or any other administration. You see, and that's the nature of those on that side. Mama Guy, yeah, seeking to hoodwink the people. And he's making the point, he talked about Singapore having a first-class airport. But he is seeking to ensure that we don't have one. What manner of man is this? I say to you, sir, minority leader, that you must come clean with the people to earn their faith and their trust. Yes? It makes absolutely no sense. It does nothing to your brand if you think that the best way to come to power is by undermining and by attempting to hoodwink the people. Because you see, it is well known that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. And well, you are most welcome, but I do hope that you take the advice seriously. And therefore, Madam Presiding Officer, as I wind down, I want to say to the people of Tobago and to members of this House that in less than 3 years, we have transformed the landscape of Tobago. We have continued on the path to progress. We have been enhancing delivery, as indeed we have been strengthening partnerships. And we shall continue to do that because we are confident that the majority of the people of Tobago have begun to see the light and have begun to understand the vision and the intent of this administration as we take on the solid but complex issues facing the economy and the people of Tobago. And I can say confidently that we will succeed. We are succeeding, and we will overcome.
Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation.
Madam Presiding Officer, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this debate. I'm hoping that I could get through before our 12:30 break. I want to start off first by commending the Secretary of Finance and the Economy and his team at the Division of Finance and Economy and the Division of Planning for the preparation of this budget for fiscal 2019-2020, and also for continuing to assist us in advancing our island's development agenda. Now, Madam Presiding Officer, the minority leader coincidentally has just left, but we were all forced this morning, happily not for 2 hours and 10 minutes, but we were forced nonetheless to listen to the minority leader, and also his comments on the varying media platforms post the Secretary of Finance budget presentation. And Madam Presiding Officer, for whatever reason, every time the minority leader speaks, he pronounces doom and gloom, and he pronounces negativity. In his own words this morning, he said Sanders left and the airport project would soon be history. We are cognizant, Madam Presiding Officer, that the role of the minority is to keep us in check, and we agree with that. But this spirit of negativity that has permeated the island of Tobago, Madam Presiding Officer, this afternoon, we rebuke that negative spirit. And we declare that every tongue that rises up against progress shall be condemned. Because Tobago, Madam Presiding Officer, will progress in Jesus' name. Madam Presiding Officer, it would be remiss of me if I do not acknowledge the stellar contributions and the exemplary leadership of the Honorable Chief Secretary, Kelvin Charles, who has led and continues to lead this current administration with admirable foresight, share, resilience, and fine distinction. Under his tutelage and mantra, business as unusual, we can boast of a Tobago that is moving and positioning itself as definitely beyond ordinary. I applaud this Secretary again for choosing such a pertinent budget theme, advancing our development agenda, as this theme, Madam Presiding Officer, distinctly coincides with our vision and our mantra at the Division of Tourism, Culture and Transportation. And we are zealously mobilizing all our efforts to ensure that Tobago achieves high regional and international repositioning as the premier destination. We are also ensuring that the right mechanisms are in place through consultations with our stakeholders, our industry players, and the people of Tobago, which is all in keeping, Madam Presiding Officer, with the Assembly's diversification goals. And before I go further, Madam Presiding Officer, I must recognize and commend my diligent and enthusiastic administrator and the staff and the hardworking staff and the board and staff of all our supporting entities and agencies, the Tobago Tourism Agency, the Tobago Festivals Commission, the Pigeon Point Board of Directors for their support and commitment, without whom, Madam Presiding Officer, our achievements over the past years would not have been possible. And without further delay, I would delve straight into my areas of responsibility: tourism, culture, and transportation, and just speak over the past fiscal year. Now, Madam Presiding Officer, we have focused on restructuring, rebranding of the destination, redefining our product with the aim of increasing our visibility in the global marketplace. And just about a year ago, whilst contributing to the fiscal package for 2019, I did list some of the things that the division will be undertaking in this fiscal year. And indeed, Madam Presiding Officer, we have achieved some significant milestones, and I will kickstart with the Tobago Tourism Agency Limited. Now, the core mandate of TTAL, Madam Presiding Officer, is to lead the development of the island's tourism products and the marketing and positioning of the island of Tobago, as I said earlier, as a premier destination. In this regard, if I can just list some of the activities that the agency embarked upon during the fiscal. First, we spoke about our 3-year roadmap for growth. And between the period June to December 2018, the agency, as a relatively new entity, engaged in some critical activities, which included administrative initiatives as well as program initiatives. And one of the major achievements under the umbrella of this program was the rebranding of the destination with the unveiling an attractive logo and tagline, Tobago Beyond Ordinary. And what this did for us as a destination, Madam Presiding Officer, is that there is no longer confusion in the marketplace, as persons now recognize who we are distinctly, because in the past, and even from attending our trade shows and so on, very early in my tenure, there were 2 branding assigned to the destination. We had clean, green, safe, and serene, and then there was live the culture Tobago style. And so the tour operators and so on, they were not understanding who we were as a destination and who we were as an island. And so now that we are known as Tobago Beyond Ordinary, that confusion has been cleared up. We have received excellent commendations from all our operators, our airline partners, our trade partners, and this, Madam Presiding Officer, is definitely one of the major accomplishments. As part, in keeping with modern marketing strategies, the agency also executed a digital marketing plan, and this coincides, Madam Presiding Officer, with the fact that we are all aware that the budgets are not as big as we would like them to be. So we have adapted and we are utilizing the digital technology. And we have had some strategic placements over the last months, including Sunday Times, The Telegraph, Time Inc., Travel Weekly, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, amongst others, Madam Presiding Officer. And I want to commend the agency for adopting a targeted approach to marketing, as attention is being given to specified niches and tailoring messages and activities directed at those niches and those markets. I just want to mention, Madam Presiding Officer, one of the recent activities implemented was the hosting of a 3-day Bride Villa conference at Mount Irving to promote the destination, as we continue to promote Destination Tobago as a premier honeymoon and wedding destination. But as well, Madam Presiding Officer, we had some of the industry's top practitioners from across the world, across the Caribbean, who provided workshops for our local suppliers here in Tobago, local service providers, to bring them up to speed, to let them know what these international potential brides and grooms are looking for. So areas like photography, wedding decor, catering, and I can tell you, Madam Presiding Officer, that the participants were extremely grateful for this opportunity. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to move quickly to airlift, and we have made some significant strides in airlift, not as much as we would like, but it continues to be a work in progress, Madam Presiding Officer. And on December 20th, 2018, that was a historic day for Tobago as we welcomed Sunwing Airlines to our shores. Sunwing, Madam Presiding Officer, definitely created history by being the first airline to provide direct airlift out of Canada to Tobago. The airline operated a chartered winter-only flight from December 20th to April 25th, 2019. And as a result of the effective collaboration, Madam Presiding Officer, with Sunwing Airlines and the strategic marketing, the airline company, which resulted in an addition of more than 1,500 passengers from Canada to Tobago in just 4 months. During that period, Sunwing Airlines brought 2,547 passengers to Tobago, in which 92% or 2,345 passengers were stay-over arrivals. Madam Presiding Officer, Sunwing Airlines has already confirmed their intention to provide this service during the next winter as we continue to collaborate with them to increase arrivals from the Canadian market. Madam Presiding Officer, on the heels of our rebranding exercise, we have experienced an 18% increase in our international arrivals. And this, what must be said, Madam Presiding Officer, this did not just happen overnight. This was as a result of strategy. This was as a result of making informed decisions in crafting our messages. Our arrivals from the United Kingdom, which is our largest source market, are up by 7% over 2018. We are encouraged by the prospects for the German and Scandinavian markets as well as the United States markets, which will attract renewed attention as we go forward. I can say, Madam Presiding Officer, that the agency has already appointed a marketing representative in the Scandinavian market. That's a market that we were before, and so we are actively and aggressively pursuing that market. So, Madam Presiding Officer, the teething period is over, like I indicated just a while ago, and the outlook for the future is indeed positive. Madam Presiding Officer, I just want to touch on our domestic transportation as the Tobago House of Assembly continues to collaborate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago to ensure that there is seamless travel between the islands. The government, as we speak, Madam Presiding Officer, we have 2 wet-leased aircrafts that are operating the air bridge, of which one of those wet-leased aircrafts will be here for a period of 6 months, Madam Presiding Officer. When we look at the sea bridge, we also want to commend the government for ensuring that there is continuation and greater predictability and reliability on the sea bridge. And it was just about a week ago, the Jour de la Vallée arrived in Trinidad to join the Galleon's passage in servicing the sea bridge. And it is noteworthy to mention that this boat was leased for 1 year as we await the arrival of 2 new spanking fast ferries that will be owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that popular saying, Madam Presiding Officer, that Rome was not built in a day may apply to us. But even as short-term measures are being implemented, longer-term actions are also being considered. Madam Presiding Officer, as part of our rebranding exercise of the destination, it is integral to create content along with our core pillars of unspoilt, untouched, and undiscovered. Repetition is key to driving awareness for the destination, and we are pleased to collaborate with the National Geographic Explorer magazine project. Now, the National Geographic Explorer magazine has demonstrated a number of successes within the travel category with their high editorial values to place aspirational content. And this is the first time for Tobago that Tobago is partnering with such a large UK magazine. Specifically, this is the UK edition, and it's the world's leading travel magazine. With a circulation of 58,242 and 150,000 readers across the UK, the 180-page travel and lifestyle magazine is packed full of you are there photography, authentic travel experiences, and inspiring narratives, all focused on the brand's theme, all travel, all the time. There was an initial placement of the destination in December, and to date, those initiatives have created over 70 million impressions for Tobago and continue to enhance our share of voice in a crowded and very competitive marketplace. Madam Presiding Officer, I move quickly to some of our product development initiatives because even as we place focus on marketing, we must also place focus on our products. We must establish transformational goals. We will continue to work towards obtaining more direct airlift from our major source markets. Our efforts at the division, as well as our satellite agencies, the Tobago Tourism Agency, are strategically targeted towards this objective. Now, in the area of product, I want to speak briefly about a special three-phased audit of the tourism product that commenced this year. And the aim of this initiative was to identify and analyze tourism product offerings. We wanted to get an idea of what we have. Who are the people that are in the business? Who are the persons that are running Airbnbs? Once you are in the business, we needed to find out. Now, this first phase of the tourism products audit focused on the accommodation components of our tourism product offerings in Tobago and included a database review. And I'm pleased to advise, Madam Presiding Officer, that the agency was able to garner pertinent information about the accommodation sector. And it was revealed that Tobago has at least 3,700 rooms offered by 580 properties. And these properties, Madam Presiding Officer, include large hotels, villas, guest houses, small properties, people offering bed and breakfast services, as well as a number of self-catering establishments. The audit also revealed the degree of digital integration of those properties, because what we found is a number of the properties, they are not online. So even as we are ramping up our efforts to bring visibility to the destination, which is the role of the government, when persons are now looking for Tobago, they cannot find the properties, they cannot find a place to stay, they cannot find a place to book because the properties are not online. But Madam Presiding Officer, this process is ongoing, and we will continue to include development content. We will work with our stakeholders to ensure that we are all on the same page. Madam Presiding Officer, the Tourism Accommodation Upgrade Program continued for fiscal 2018-2019. To date, we have about 7 properties that have engaged in the program. Work is underway at some of these properties, and a number of them are at varying processes. This program will continue into the next fiscal year, and we will explore the possibility of enhancing its scope. The TTAL also worked with the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards to develop standards for various elements of our tourism industry delivery, including our tour operators, taxi drivers, and all persons in the accommodation sector. And that is as we continue to build capacity within the industry for service excellence. Madam Presiding Officer, I am heartened to state that a Tobago Tourism Council, chaired by the Honorable Chief Secretary, will be established, and one of the main priorities of this council is to provide an avenue for identifying and discussing viable options, as well as finding opportune solutions for industry challenges. That also underscores the importance that the administration is placing on tourism, that amidst all the Chief Secretary's responsibilities, Chief Secretary Education, everything, he's still finding the time to ensure that he interfaces with stakeholders to ensure that we find all the necessary solutions. Madam Presiding Officer, the agency will also be working with our local establishments in the tourism industry towards establishing as many green certification businesses as possible. And this is very consistent with our brand identity of the destination, which continues to give Tobago a considerable marketing advantage over our competitors. And Madam Presiding Officer, I pause to commend Ms. Crystal Manswell and the Tobago entrepreneurs for the launch of the Green Army campaign, an effort that is aimed at building a sustainable Tobago as we work to brand Tobago as the green capital of the Caribbean. And when we talk about stakeholder collaboration, these are the initiatives that we love to see, because we cannot continue to leave it all up to the government. And so I commend Ms. Crystal Manswell and the Tobago entrepreneurs for that initiative. Madam Presiding Officer, we are mindful that as we continue to progress, we must set ourselves transformational goals. And so we will continue, as I said, working towards growing more airlift from our major source markets. Madam Presiding Officer, I move to some of our tourism development projects, and in the coming months and rolling into the new fiscal, I just want to list some of our projects. Some are way more advanced than others. We have the construction of the bridge between the Scarborough Port and the Milford Road Esplanade. That is to ensure a smooth transition of our cruise ship passengers to the Esplanade. We have the construction of restroom facilities at the forts. Specifically, we are starting with Fort Bennett in Blackrock, Pembroke Heritage Park upgrades, Palatavere washroom facility upgrades, and restoration of the Cove historical site. And I was also heartened by the fact that the Secretary in his budget presentation mentioned the establishment of facilities at Little Tobago, the Lure Wildlife Nature Park, which would be done in collaboration with my colleague, Secretary Spencer, and his division, the Division of Community Development, Enterprise and Labor, as we add to our tourism assets here on the island of Tobago. Madam Presiding Officer, I move to cultural development and transformation, and as we speak tourism and product development, culture remains one of our key product offerings and is a high priority as we seek to enhance our initiatives. And a holistic approach will be applied by the Culture Department in keeping with the strategic alignment of the Division of Tourism with culture and transportation. And some of the areas for emphasis in the upcoming months, we want to look at archiving, cultural exchanges, recognition of Tobago as a heritage island. And in light of this, the division has embarked on various initiatives with the aim of monetizing cultural, creative products and potential products in Tobago. It was just earlier this year, Madam Presiding Officer, that the Executive Council approved for the establishment of a Tobago Performing Arts Company, and this company will provide oversight as well as standardize Tobago's cultural offerings. This will lay the foundation for practitioners in the arts to develop and sharpen their skills, which will lead to the creation of sustainable employment opportunities. Madam Presiding Officer, some of our programs, we have our Performing Arts Training Program. We currently have 11 communities, 14 schools, TD Steel Orchestras, 2 police youth clubs, 1 church, and TD cultural groups as part of that program. Our Arts Push program, Madam Presiding Officer, the program this year has recorded an increase in participants in most of the courses offered. Our dance and drama, West African dance and drum, stilt walking, costume design, etc. And for the 2019 cycle, we would place focus on stilt walking, that is the art of the moko, stage and film theater. Madam Presiding Officer, in the month of May, the division held a heritage consultation and symposium. And the major aim was to facilitate intellectual discourse on the approaches and recommendations through a collective process. And following that heritage consultation and symposium, there were a number of recommendations for implementation that were made in the following areas. One such is copywriting and patenting, because the Tobago Heritage Festival, as we know, Madam Presiding Officer, is not copyrighted. The logo is not copyrighted, and so we are moving swiftly to ensure that these things are done. Persons can just come to a Heritage Festival, film a video, go back and do whatever they want with it. So all the copyrights and patenting would deal with those aspects, Madam Presiding Officer. The influence, the preservation, food, training, marketing, and there's a manual that is currently being developed. And once that manual is developed, we are going to move to ensure that we implement those aspects. Madam Presiding Officer, I want to talk briefly on one of our new product offerings, that is the Icons of Tobago Museum that we launched in March 2019 at the Fort King George Heritage Park, and it includes artifacts which includes to both Calypso Rose and the late Mighty Shadow, aspects of their work, their presentation, their awards, all those, Madam Presiding Officer, we have at the Icons of Tobago Museum. And what must be mentioned is that Calypso Rose, both Calypso Rose and the family of Mighty Shadow were in high praises and thanked the Tobago House of Assembly for this initiative. Madam Presiding Officer, we have talked about the Tobago Traditional Arts Academy, and we have talked about that, and I just want to give an update on where we are with the Arts Academy. It would be rolled out in 3 phases. Phase 1, we have the accreditation of tutors and traditional knowledge bearers. At present, we have 15 qualified practitioners who have registered their intent in becoming assessors, and 26 persons registered their interest for the prior learning assessment recognition registration. Phase 2 is the accreditation of external stakeholders seeking to be accredited in the traditional and the indigenous arts. Phase 3, marketing of the Traditional Arts Academy to our Caribbean neighbors, with the division as an accredited center for the program through the National Training Agency. So we continue to work with the NTA, Madam Presiding Officer, as we roll that out in phases. Madam Presiding Officer, our rural film initiative, Tobago is uniquely positioned in the digital and technology industry, especially in the area of rural film. And the division launched this initiative in April of 2019 because it is believed that the digitization of Tobago folk traditions is important as we are seeking preservation, transfer of knowledge, branding and promotion of Tobago's unique culture. There was a call for scripts. We had 15 scripts that were submitted by various community groups. A team of international and national judges evaluated the scripts and shortlisted the top 4 entries for the workshop and transference into films. And these workshops are scheduled to be held in the month of July 2019. Madam Presiding Officer, as part of our ongoing awareness, we continue to promote positive youth development on the island by investing in our young people, by getting them involved in tourism youth programs. And this year, for the first time, we had a junior secretary of tourism who represented Tobago at the CTO's State of the Tourism Industry Conference. On Friday, we will be having the second of such youth debates, where we would see the emergence of a second junior secretary of tourism who would also represent the destination at the State of the Tourism Industry Conference later this year. Madam Presiding Officer, and as I continue on our tourism youth club initiatives, because the students are very excited and they continue to support as we continue to invest in their efforts. To date, we have about 5 youth clubs who heeded to the request for the execution of a community project. We have 8 of the 9 secondary schools that actually have tourism youth clubs. The third for the Goodwood Secondary School. The Goodwood Secondary School, the name of their project is the Mill Ruin Experience, and so that is on the way with the development workers at the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries, and the Environment. I touched briefly on some of our revenue generation strategies, and if I could just list some of the areas that revenue is currently being generated by the division: rental of our concessionaire booths at the beach facilities, Fort King George Heritage Museum, the Icons of Tobago Museum, our interactive museum experience, request to host events at our forts, and of course our ticket sales from our major events, Carnival, Heritage, and jazz events. And the division has the potential to generate additional revenue. And some ways that we are looking to do that in the coming months, we want to turn the Fort King George Heritage Park, once it is fully secured, a day park experience where persons will be able to access the many amenities that are offered at the park. A historical monument may also be placed at the park, which will further attract visitors. We are looking at construction of craft booths at Fort King George. The division also intends to collaborate with the Division of Food Production, Forestry and Fisheries to make the Botanical Gardens a revenue generation site. Our forts, Milford, Fort Bennett, Fort James, Mystery Tombstone, all have the potential to generate revenue. And the installation of a coin token operated turnstile entry can assist in obtaining revenue from every person that visits the site.
Remember, your speaking time has expired. I don't know if you're very close to wrapping up, but I will allow you to continue if one of your members would move the motion before we go off to the break.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I beg to move that the speaking time of the honourable member be extended by a further 10 minutes.
The question is that the speaking time of the honourable member be extended by a further 10 minutes. All in favour? Aye. Any against? Member, your speaking time has been extended by a further 10 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I definitely would not need 10 minutes. But I was just on the revenue generation, the rental of our dance studio, the restoration at Pembroke Heritage Park. That in itself is an attraction to our tourists and our visitors, and can provide budding opportunities for entrepreneurs in the community of Pembroke and environs. And so, Madam Presiding Officer, while I can certainly continue to expound and go on all the successful initiatives implemented by my division, I trust that my contribution has given sufficient insight into the developmental and substantial initiatives that we have undertaken. It is my intent that my elaboration on our planned upcoming ventures has provided adequate proof that the division and this Tobago House of Assembly certainly has been about the people's business, and we continue to deliver. We at the division, we remain committed to ensuring that suitable and sustainable programs are implemented that will benefit all Tobagonians, which will positively impact on our visitor arrivals. So, Madam Presiding Officer, we are on our steady path as we continue to advance our development agenda. We will not be distracted. We will not be sidetracked. We will not be retracted by our naysayers, because performance beats all talk any day and every day. We have confidence, every confidence in the leadership of our Chief Secretary and this administration that we will get the job done. Madam Presiding Officer, colleagues, I thank you.
Honourable members, the House will now, the sitting will be suspended for 1 hour. We will return at 35 minutes after 1.
What democracy means to me, first political speech competition. I would first like to commend the Assembly Legislature for this initiative. we, the judges, have found that the submissions to be quite interesting.
As a teen, I found the videos very remarkable for their age group, 8 to 11.
We have found the submissions to provide a perspective from a child's eye of what democracy and how they see politics to some extent in this country. So these speeches are worthy of being seen and being listened by everybody. So by and large, the submissions were very good. We had to, of course, adjudicate and select someone to be the winner. And it showed that there was some effort on the part of the children, their teachers, their parents, whoever was involved in preparing them. Thanks to the Assembly Legislature for affording us this opportunity to adjudicate, to view these videos. And I want to encourage anybody out there who hears this that if they can find the time to try to see all the videos that have been presented, because they are very, very interesting.
I am Adriel Mark, I'm number 4, and I will be saying what democracy means to me. Democracy means equal rights for all and special privileges for none. I live in a democratic state of Trinidad and Tobago. In 1962, when we got our independence from Britain, we became a democratic country where every creed and race can have an equal place. When I grow up, I will be able to vote and have a say in things that affect me, my family, and my community. For now, I will be able to practice democracy in the playgrounds and at home by respecting the wishes of the people I play with and my community. When I grow up, I will be able to vote and make sure my ideas are heard. I want to keep democracy going, as other countries don't have democracy and a dictator telling them what to do. I want to make sure my government is doing what is best for all the people of my country. And that is what democracy means to me.
Do you know how lucky you are to be living in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Thanks to defenders of democracy like Dr. Winston Murray, who fought for justice and equity so that all citizens of Tobago and Trinidad are treated equally. We have the right to practice any religion, assemble, and express our opinions freely. We enjoy equality in every aspect of our lives, such as education, the law, employment, and fair wages regardless of any race, gender, or class. So no matter which government is voted into power, it is their duty to defend our rights and act in our best interests. When I grow up, I want to be like Dr. Winston Murray and be a defender of democracy.
We live in a democratic society. At home, we vote by majority to decide whether to go to the beach or to the movies. At school, Miss will ask, how many of you want to go to the mall or library? Show hands in the air. Then Miss will count and do what the majority of the class decides. True democracy happens at election time in our country of Trinidad and Tobago. Anyone who is 18 years or over is free to vote for the party he likes the most. The person with the most votes in each area wins and becomes the area representative. These representatives make policies so we can all enjoy a better quality of life. The party that wins in the most areas wins the election. So, it's democracy when the majority chooses and everyone else has to concede. That's what democracy means to me.
democracy means to me. In a cosmopolitan nation such as Trinidad and Tobago, democracy depicts freedom. However, it is the responsibility that comes along with this freedom which makes us truly democratic. The responsibility to be educated and informed. The responsibility to vote. The responsibility to give back to one's community. The responsibility to listen openly to others. And the responsibility to be respectful. Democracy for me means freedom. It means equality. It means unity, and it means respect. As a people, our ultimate goal should be to create positive change that includes everyone, and we must believe that our tools, support systems, and resources will help foster this kind of change. Only then can we truly call ourselves a democracy.
There are hidden stories about Tobago's history tucked away in the memories of men and women who served in the Assembly. They hold the key to unlocking some of the knowledge surrounding Tobago's legislative history. The Assembly Legislature Secretariat is an apolitical division that oversees the plenary sitting on the fourth Thursday of each month, where the public can view debates on Tobago's affairs. But Tobago's legislative authority did not begin with the current Tobago House of Assembly. The first formation of the legislative representation was in 1768 at the island's former capital, Georgetown, now Studley Park, with a 13-member elected House of Assembly, a lower house and the appointed Legislative Council, and the upper house. 1 year later, Scarborough became the island's new capital, and consequentially the seat of Tobago's politics was relocated. These were during colonial times, when the operations of the Assembly favored the European settlers. The abolition in slavery in 1834 was the catalyst for empowerment throughout the world. Tobago was not exempt from this movement towards self-rule. In 1877, representative government was abolished, with the Crown Colony introduced to handle the administration of the island. In 1889, Tobago was joined with Trinidad by the British government. The Tobago House of Assembly was created by Act 37 of 1980 for making better provisions for the administration of Tobago and for matters therein. It comprises 7 divisions, each representing a developmental concern. THA has legislative arm and the executive arm. In addition to 10 divisions, 9 with particular remits, plus the Office of the Chief Secretary, which oversees the others. There is so much to learn, and to help you do this, the Secretariat now has an archive project for all assemblymen from 1980 to present. Today we start with a few officials who served in between 1980 and 1988. In 1980, the Assembly was led by a chairman. At this time it was Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson, now deceased.
That 1977 motion by A.N.R. Robinson, which led to the creation of the current Tobago House of Assembly by Act 37 of 1980, because I understood the need and the desire for Tobagonians for self-determination, I appreciated the effort, and I somewhat associated with that greater autonomy for the people of Tobago. So I understood the struggle, I understood the reason, and therefore, while the PNM contested that election in 1980 and lost, we won 4 seats and the then DAC won 8. I understood the need for greater autonomy for Tobago.
At that time, there were 2 political parties represented in the Assembly. Mr. Calendar was on the minority side, held by the People's National Movement, but control of the House was with Mr. Robinson and the Democratic Action Congress.
We are the architect of self-government for Tobago, and the Parliament would have decided that Tobago should have its internal self-government in 1977. However, when the legislation was passed in Parliament, and that legislation, as you know, is Act number 37 of 1980, to give effect to the decision of Parliament, it stopped woefully short